part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Hey, what's good? Welcome to Cavs on the Break NBA podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sabol alongside Sam Amico, owner, writer, operator of hoopswire.com, and you follow all the latest NBA news there, as well as everything Cavaliers. Follow Sam at Amico Hoops on Twitter. Follow me at John_Sabol, and follow the pod at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back, and continue to follow us on Twitter. You'll get the latest updates from our podcast releases as we go about the season, if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe and give us a rating. That really helps us out there, wherever platform you're listening to. Without further ado, Sam, how you been? What's going on, man?
Not much. Just enjoying the midway point of the NBA season. Hard to believe we're here already, isn't it?
It's flying by, man.
Yeah.
It is going quick.
That's what happens as you get older. Life goes faster. I've found that as I've gotten older.
Speaking of older, you got a birthday coming up here next month.
Next month, but I mean, yeah. Before that, we've got the NBA trade deadline, the All-Star game, the Super Bowl, and but I will be eligible for the Denny Senior Slam on my next birthday.
No kidding.
We're all going.
Do you remember?
Invited.
Do you remember, Sam, the old Denny's commercials with the old ladies talking about the Grand Slam breakfast from like the early to mid 90s?
Yeah, now I'm one of them.
Some of our younger listeners probably have no idea what we're talking about, but
I do remember those.
Good times there.
I think Denny's is so bad now they don't even bother to advertise.
I have two Denny's stories. When my older brother Scott, who I work with at Fox 8, and who also is a co-host of mine, we host our own podcast, Sabol Brothers and the Baseline, here on the Press Play Podcast Network. When he was in college, he went to school at University of St. Louis, or St. Louis University, and we would take the whole family. I'm the youngest of five; he's the oldest of five, so we had to drive out there every year to drop him off from school and then drive back. But when he graduated, on the drive there, we always had to stop for breakfast somewhere, or we stopped. The only place that we find fast food between like Indiana and St. Louis in the middle of the corn was a Denny's. And we always had, and I just got so sick of it. And then the only other Denny's story I remember is in college. Sometimes we'd find a Denny's somewhere in, I don't know if was it Kent? No, you know what? That wasn't Denny's. That was Mike's place in Kent, but another great breakfast spot, way better. But yeah, any good Denny's stories?
No, other than February 22nd, I'll be the one in Medina, and I'm hoping Scott will come because he also lives in Medina.
Yeah, he's not too far away from you.
Yeah, and you guys should all be there. You told me earlier it's Ash Wednesday as well, February 22nd.
Yeah. How about that?
So come eat some sausage on me.
There you go.
Grand Slam, Senior Slam prices.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't think the big JC would appreciate that.
Probably. Hey, that's also Dr. J's birthday and George Washington's birthday.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, and you're in that group.
I am. Yeah, I'm in the group. Drew Barrymore also.
How do you do? You just go online and look this up one day and just store it in the mind, and then when someone asks you about your birthday, you're like, this is my one time to tell that really good fact.
Well, I knew George Washington because elementary school they tell you when George Washington's birthday is, but I found out Dr. J when I was a little kid. I collected basketball cards, of course, and they always had their stuff, their information on the back. And I'm going through the cards one day. I was probably 7, and I looked at the back of his card, and it said February 22nd. I remember exactly that day. Wow. I was in the basement. I had a little play area down there, and I was down there, and I looked at the cards. I carried that card upstairs and sprinted upstairs to tell my dad, Dad, Dr. J's birthday's also February 22nd. This is so cool, And my dad was like, yeah, that's great.
So the big question is, where's that basketball card now?
I still have the card.
Get out of here.
No, I do. They're actually I have all of my cards from my childhood in a big box, fittingly in the basement. And my boys now, whatever, I can play Dr. J on NBA 2K. I don't need to look at a card.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny. I still have all my basketball and baseball cards growing up. Some are in a box, some are still in a binder. When I went to my parents, when was this? Thanksgiving, maybe before Thanksgiving here, I found a box with my binder, and in the binder that had the cards was a Beckett from 1994. Again, we're dating ourselves. Our younger listeners probably don't know what a Beckett is, but a Beckett was a little paper magazine. It almost looked like a little miniature newspaper, but in a comic book form that gave you looked up the card, the make and model of the card and the serial number, and it would tell you how much it was worth and the condition that it was in. And I looked through the Beckett, and I had 3 cards circled in that version. I don't know how often those Becketts came out, but I had 3 cards that I had that were worth in that year. One was worth like $25, and that was a Chris Webber rookie card. And then another one was like an Albert Bell card that was worth $15. And then, I cannot remember the third one. It might have been a Jordan card that was like a hologram one that was maybe worth $50 or something. Back in 94. But
now who knows?
Good times.
Yeah.
Do kids still collect cards?
No. They stopped. The older boys stopped when they were like 12 or 13. Okay. They're 18 and 17 now. And then the youngest is just now starting a little bit to get into sports, a little bit more playing, but I think he sees his brothers are into it, so he's into it a little bit. But I will buy him like basketball and baseball cards, and he likes them, but then he
sure.
He's not super into it yet, but he will be, and I can't wait because that will give me an opportunity to be back into them myself. So.
Absolutely. Well, COVID brought baseball and basketball cards, trading cards back. I guess they got more popular throughout the pandemic. I was in Cooperstown, New York over the summer with my dad and brother for a little Father's Day trip, little bonding time with them, going to the Baseball Hall of Fame. We walked into a trading card show or a store, and I go to my brother. I'm like, Scott, let's just buy a pack. And so we bought, but we didn't buy like current present day pack. We bought like ones that were unopened from like 87, 88, 89, 90. We opened 4 packs, and those ones still had the gum in it. And so we did a podcast, my brother and I, for one of our episodes. We interviewed my dad for a Father's Day podcast last year. And because he has a lot of Cleveland sports memories and ties to the city and stuff. His dad was an old, my grandfather was an old usher at Municipal Stadium back in the day. He used to attend Indians games at League Park. And so baseball is a big family sport. So we go there and we're like, you know what? We're going to do an interview. We're going to interview Dad, talking about, Cleveland sports, talking about him coaching us when we were little. And then Scott and I decided, you know what? We're going to open up these packets of these cards on this podcast on live and go through them as so. And we found some really good gems. And then I had the idea, I'm going to eat the gum.
Oh boy.
And then gum's 30 years old.
Yeah.
I took a bite and you could hear it. If you guys are really curious, you can go find the podcast episode on the
Sabol Brothers.
On the Sabol Brothers there. You can find it, go back to June, and you can hear, Sam, it crunch. It sounded like someone was breaking their neck, but it was the gum shattering in my mouth.
Did you chew? Was it chewable?
No, because you tried to chew it and it just became more brittle and it was like you're chewing glass. So then I took a sip of water to see if I can get it kind of like molded and, solidify. And it just
this
made
is
it
all
worse.
a bad idea.
And then I couldn't do anything and I just spit it out. It basically tasted like chalk.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Well, it tasted like chalk 30 years ago, too.
You're right. All right, let's get on task here. Chase is sitting out. He's under the weather. Jeremy is also sitting out this week's edition. He's got family obligations here. So Sam and I are recording this here on the evening of Wednesday, January 11th. The Cavaliers play tomorrow night on the 12th in Portland. Let's recap Donovan Mitchell's return to Salt Lake City, Sam. Obviously, I mean, he had a really good game, 46 points. Cavs lost by 2. Crazy things happen in that game, though.
Yeah, first of all, and he was fantastic. He had probably the quietest, most efficient 46 points I've ever seen. There wasn't a lot that was like real dynamic about it, like the 71-point game. Um, but I mean, they got down 13 in the second half. But then when they came back and took the lead with just a couple minutes left, I thought, yeah, they've got this, and they should have had it. Um, those two really weird calls on Harris LeVert did not help. I did not like the flagrant when he was closing out on a 3-point shooter. That was good defense, and I thought that was a terrible call.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't like the one later either, where Clarkson kind of backed into him. It seemed like a little bit and created the contact. I just didn't like those calls, and that really impacted them in terms of all of a sudden you have a 5-point lead, and now all of a sudden you're down 2. That was a big swing. That said, they really had a lot of opportunities before and after that to put it away, and they just never capitalized. But I think that's the kind of loss that stings. The Cavs have had a couple of those where they're games you should have won, like the Clippers. I'm thinking of the Clippers was the first one that comes to mind. The Spurs, they got down huge early, had a couple chances to win and didn't win, and this game against the Jazz, same type of deal. You had this game and then you let it get away. And look, throughout the course of the 82 game season, that's going to happen even to the best of teams. But as far as Donovan Mitchell goes, was very good. Darius Garland was 21 points was pretty good. You really had to like what you saw from Lamar Stevens, but they just didn't close, and their role players, the guys like Chetty and trying to think who else. Kevin Love didn't shoot very well. Okoro got sick. They lost Allen, who got sick during the game. So a lot of things impacted them, but their role players have to start playing better on the road, and they just have consistently not played very well on the road when you're talking about the guys who aren't the stars, and that's a little troubling moving forward. But nothing that's nitpicking, But it's still something you want to get cleaned up.
Why do you think they struggle so much on the road? I mean, you could say the same thing about the Warriors. Like, they're a horrible road team. They're, I think, the worst team in the NBA in terms of playing on the road. They're what, 3 and
no, they're awful.
Right, yeah, 3 and 16. I mean,
yeah, that's embarrassing.
The only team that's worse, or I should say, near them in that is the Rockets at 4 and 16.
Yeah.
So why do you think the Cavs struggle so much on the road? What is it?
Well, I think historically, and you know this, John, throughout the NBA, role players play way better at home. They're just more comfortable there. And you need role players. I mean, you got to have those guys to fill out the roster and do their thing and know their role. But historically, role players will play better at home, which is why teams are so much better at home. It's just you're more comfortable there. You're you play off the crowd, which you don't get to do on the road.
Right.
And a lot of it too, I've talked to NBA players who say a lot of it comes down to shooting. You're so much more comfortable shooting in your gym.
Yeah.
That, it makes you comfortable all the way around. If you feel like, okay, I'm gonna make this shot, I just feel comfortable taking it. I just play with more energy at home. So, I mean, I don't think the Cavs really are that bad on the road. Granted, it'd be nice to be 500. They're almost 500.
You're
They've
8 and 12.
played well enough that they should be above 500 on the road, but they've just sometimes your legs catch up with you a little bit. So
there's a
I
little
thought they
very
had a nice win in Phoenix a couple
sure,
nights
and
early.
I think when you talk about the legs, that's a very valid point. Depending on how long of a road trip you're on, if you're on a long West Coast trip like you're on here, your legs aren't going to be with you the entire time. But if you're just maybe a little hop, skip, and a jump over Lake Erie, and you're going to Detroit or
Yeah,
down to Indy, um, that's a little bit different. I also think too the issue with them is that they're still young and figuring themselves out a little bit.
sure.
Sometimes they have a tendency to play down to their opponents and having sometimes harder times finishing off games and holding leads, which has been that's right there is a sign of a young, inexperienced team when you have those issues. And someone could say, well, they're not that young. They have Kevin Love, who's, longtime vet, and Donovan Mitchell. Well, he's a role player, and Donovan Mitchell can only do so much. Love's coming off the
Right.
bench. You're looking at your core four, outside of Mitchell, your core three, Allen, Garland, and Mobley. And then if you want to throw Okoro in there, because he's starting a little bit here, um, it's it's just really young. I mean,
Yeah.
the core is
Right.
still very, very young.
Well, and that's something you hope that they don't learn in the playoffs because LeBron used to say it. We hear it around the NBA all the time in the playoffs. The series doesn't start until somebody wins a road game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the case. So you want to get by the end of the year, get your guys to the point where they're, feeling like they're going to close these games out on the road. They do it at home and they get these leads. And like I said, I don't think they're a bad road team. They
Mhm.
just are having issues finishing on the road. And they've got to be able to do that, before the playoffs get here, or it's going to cost them, um, whether it costs them a series or whatever. Uh, you know, like I said, I don't think it's a big issue, but it is something that is going to come with experience. The Milwaukee's of the world, the Brooklyn Nets of the world, the
Celtics.
Celtics, and the Sixers. Those are all veteran teams that understand. You got to go out and take care of business on the road sometimes, especially when it means the most. So you got to start forming that habit
Right.
pretty quickly here if you're the Cavs.
Well, and they need to because you're going to start to get in the second half of the season where it's crunch time. And last year, crunch time happened when they literally crunched away in terms of injuries. They're relatively healthy still. They're still missing Dean Wade. Ricky Rubio is coming back tomorrow against Portland. You and I discussed this last week when we did our pod about Donovan's 71 points. We briefly touched on this, but let's temper our expectations on Ricky Rubio and what he's going to be able to do when he first comes back. He will be on a minute restriction. I don't think his impact's going to be really felt much. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's also going to give maybe Darius and Donovan a breather here and there. But you're still not going to see the full Ricky Rubio potential till probably maybe late March, early April. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would think, I for sure he'll be on some type of minute restriction. He probably isn't going to play, both games of a back-to-back set. He might even if they're not on back-to-back nights, he might sit out. If they play, say, a Tuesday, Thursday kind of arrangement, he may sit out one of those games, So they're going to bring him along slowly. Um, I think the immediate impact he will make is in morale, which is a team that already has pretty good morale and feels pretty good about itself. He'll give him a boost in that area, or that the whole team in that area. He really helps Garland at practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Darius has sung his praises, Rubio's praises about how much he's helped, and just give little pointers. Hopefully, he'll help Darius, you know, kind of cut down on the turnovers, help the Cavs cut down on the turnovers. That's the one thing he can bring, even if he only brings it for 12 minutes a night. He brings kind of that at first 12 minutes a night, brings that calming veteran know-how out on the floor. So it's going to really help in those areas. But yeah, as far as him scoring 13 points a game again, that's probably not going to happen for a little bit. Maybe look, stranger things have happened. Maybe he will, but right away, the idea is to just get him back at game speed, playing in games, and and just getting him used to being out on the floor in live action. So, yeah, I would say, John, at the absolute earliest, we'll see him back comfortable probably late February. But then you got the All-Star break in there, so that might take some time.
Yeah, that's why I
Be
kind of overestimated
might
a
be
little
yeah,
farther.
it could be very well be late March or April, but whatever. You just want them ready for the playoffs.
The reason why too I say that about Ricky in his impact too is because I remember going to shoot around a couple times last few weeks when they were home, and just the vibe there is like they're all excited for him to come back. And you're right, you can't understate the morale portion of it. But JB has said before, you're reading between the lines, obviously, but they'd want him to get back. How much he's going to really gel, and they're excited to see him with Donovan again. But at the same time, they're being cautious with him. It's up to him and when he wants to come back, when he's been able to feel okay. It was like right after Christmas, JB said that it's going to be sometime after the, first of the year, which would have been the next week, which would have been last week, which is now this week. So, when you blow out your knee as often as he has, and when you're at the age that he is, you can't help but be a little bit cautious in your rehab trying to come back. And I think he has been doing that. And I give him all the credit in the world to do that. And the Cavs have been fine without him. Having him there is a bonus. But also think about this too, which we have talked about this in a pod, I think, over the summer. When the Cavs brought him back, they didn't just bring him back for this year. They're bringing him back for next year too, and they gave him that contract.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's something that clearly they hope that will be continue to be a fruitful relationship for both sides. And the like you said, the one thing that he's already providing in practice and everything is just kind of those feel good vibes. And it's because he was such a great fit, and that's why when I will touch on some trade rumblings here in a bit, but whenever I bring up somebody like an Alec Burks or a Doug McDermott, and people are like, well, he's not going to change the course of the Cavs or whatever. And I'll say, yeah, I tend to agree that person probably isn't. But did anybody think Ricky Rubio was going to help change the course of the Cavs when he came here? You have to.
Yeah.
It's really all about fit, and it's all about not just fit on the floor, but fit in the locker room, fit at practice, fit while on the road and traveling, and getting to know your teammates. So Rubio checks all the boxes when it comes to that kind of fit, and then obviously was very productive as a player as well.
Going back to this Cavs Jazz game, were you surprised at the reception Donovan Mitchell got by the Jazz faithful?
No, because I think that he's number one. It's very evident. We've talked about this a lot. He's a class act through and through. Mm-hmm. He's a good guy. He also, what I remember when they were talking about, they had traded Gobert, they traded Royce O'Neal, and they were breaking it up. Quinn Snyder left. They hired a no-name coach, Will Hardy, who's done a very nice job. In spite of all that, Donovan Mitchell made it very clear, look, if you guys want me to stay through this rebuild, I'm not going to demand a trade or ask out or anything. I'm here. And I think that, when a fan base gets wind of that, that's something that they appreciate. Look, our city, our team, our town is not so bad, to our superstar player. And I think that's a big reason why he got the positive reception. He didn't force his way out. He didn't leave in free agency. He got traded, so he had no really say. Clearly, it was better for them to make the deal and, not keep him because they were rebuilding. But at the same time, he wasn't about to demand a trade or any of that. So I think that I was glad to see the Jazz fans, for the most part, the loudest noise you could hear were cheers and appreciation.
Yeah, I think that was very classy on their part to give him that warm reception. And you're right. It's not like he forced his way out of there. One thing that I wanted to ask you about before we take a break and get into some trade rumors and my little fun little This Day in Cavs history piece. Karis LeVert. LeVert didn't have a great shooting night last night. Still kind of looks like, out of control when he takes the drives. At 12 points, kind of hurt the Cavs in some of those possessions. Hurt the Cavs on that Donovan Mitchell 71 points. Thankfully, he still got those points. I really like Karis a lot. You and I have been on the record praising him when the trade happened. A good guy, good leader, unselfish, you name it. Basically was a guy that took a different role this year trying to fit in. But still, I feel like a lot of the time, Sam, when you see Karis LeVert playing with the Cavs and you see him with this offense, there are times when he's kind of gets stuck in this like hero ball mentality where he should be dishing more when he's driving when he gets double teamed. And it clogs up their rotation or their chemistry because he's in the rotation if he's coming off the bench or if he's starting, depending what Okoro's at or whatever JB wants his rotations to be, which is another story, how that's been a little inconsistent too. We can touch on that. But Karis LeVert, I think, have we seen the ceiling with him with this team now? That's my question. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at.
I hope not. I think that he's right there. He's right there. He's really close.
He is
in terms of just being that small forward that they need. It's interesting. They had that training camp battle, and we talked about, Karis LeVert's going to win the job, or Isaac Okoro's going to win the job, or Dean Wade, or later Lamar Stevens. And it's really nobody has stepped up and said, this is my job.
Right.
It's all kind of been, and JB Bickerstaff has had to keep rotating those guys to say, okay, come on, 4 or 5 good game stretch from one of these guys, consistency, and I can keep someone in that role. Dean Wade's defense, he's been hurt.
Sure.
But when it comes to Karis LeVert, a big part of it, his shots just aren't dropping. There are a lot of times he'll get a good look at the basket, and it seems you ever notice like his shots are rolling around the rim a lot. They're not like bricks. They're rolling around the rim and they're coming out. And I think if he got like 3 or 4 more of those to go, like he did against the Celtics very early in the season when he had that 41-point night, he doesn't need to score 41. But what they would like from him is if you're shooting 12 shots, make 5, make 6. But if you can make 5 every night, we can count on 5 of 11, 5 of 12, and you setting up your teammates and fitting in, hitting a 3 here and there. He just has not done that. And there's really no rhyme or reason why he hasn't done it other than he's just out of sorts. And sometimes that happens to a player, but he's running out of time to make it happen with the Cavs. I mean, his contract's up at the end of the year, trade deadline's coming up. They want somebody in that spot to be consistent and to, they're hoping it's him, frankly, but it hasn't been. And he's just, like you said, his game has been clunky. And when he's out there sometimes, the whole offense kind of gets clunky.
Yeah.
And
it's contagious. Contagious.
Yeah. It's not a lack of effort. I mean, he's out there trying. It's just something is just he had a huge opportunity for a wide open 3 against the Jazz, and it didn't go, and that's a shot. If you're Karis LeVert, to stay in the rotation and stay, frankly, in Cleveland, those are the kind of shots you got to knock down. Wide open 3 with, the game on the line. And sometimes it just doesn't happen for you, but those are the shots that this is a business and you've got to pull your weight. And there are nights that he certainly does that, but there are too many nights where you just can't count on him to be regularly consistent contributor. And, if he can't do that, then they're going to try and go get somebody who they think might be able to do it.
Karis LeVert is actually a shooting percentage, his field goal percentage is the worst in his career this year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
41.5. In 19 games last year with the Cavs before he got hurt, or I should say he was coming off an injury. He was coming off that sprained foot or ankle after the first practice in the All-Star break. Only played 19 games there. He shot 43.5%. And to me, that was even like his production then was worse than it was worse then.
Yes.
Than it was now.
Yeah.
Even though the numbers dictate it was better then than it is now, which is odd. He's averaging 1 less point per game this year. His minutes are up by 2 minutes. So it's just a weird, interesting, I don't know. I don't know what you'd call it, a conundrum, if you will. I don't know. I like him. I like Harris a lot. I do. And I was pumped when they got him. We knew he was streaky, but he's a great kid, very professional, well-spoken, but it just hasn't been able to click yet, despite him deciding to buy into JB's system when it comes to his defense, which his defense has been improved. Yeah. And taking a lesser role. He's a very unselfish guy. And not to mention that guys around him love him in the locker room. So it's hard to knock on a guy like this, but something's got to change. And, so hopefully something will. He
just hasn't pulled it together is the way I like to say it in terms of his game on the floor. He just has not. He's not put it all together yet. And they really need him to do that here soon.
Well, Sam, I'll say this, and I don't know for sure if this will happen, but if he wants it to pull together, he's running out of time because
he is.
The NBA trade deadline is coming up on February 9th in less than a month from now. And that's a good segue to our next segment here. We're going to talk the latest trade rumors flying around. It's early, but it's not too early if you think about it. We're in the new year. Christmas is over with, so that's when things start to really heat up right now, buyers and sellers. Coming up after the break, we're going to go dive deep into potential trade rumors that could happen for the Cavs, trades that guys that we could be looking for, and then also 2 random this day in Cavs history that I'm going to throw at Sam that he has no idea what's coming. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. The wait is over. DrafKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is officially live in Ohio. And now you can legally bet on all your favorite sports anytime and anywhere right here in the great state of Ohio with DraftKings. And for a limited time, new customers who sign up with the promo code P3Cavs will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. DraftKings says the best features including same-game parlays, player props, and more with fast and easy payouts right at your fingertips. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. New customers can use promo code P3Cavs to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Remember, use the promo code P3Cavs. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 years or older, physically present in the state of Ohio. Valid one offer per first-time depositors who have not already redeemed $200 in free bets via pre-launch offer. Minimum $5 deposit and wager, $200 issued as bonus bets. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/OH for terms.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Cavs on the Break, NBA podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sabol along with you, as well as Sam Amico, writer, owner, NBA breaking newser for hoopswire.com. All NBA, all Cavs. Go read him there. Wealth of knowledge. And, of course, listen to him here on the podcast. Sam, before we get to the latest trade rumors and rumblings that you're hearing, I got two random this day in Cavs history for you.
I'm going to give it a shot.
All right.
I might know.
You might know.
I might surprise you.
There are random things. I did this with Jeremy in back-to-back podcasts before the holidays, and we just had fun with it.
Yeah. I listened to those.
This one isn't, I guess it's this day in Cavs history like 4 days ago, because when we record the pods on Mondays or Tuesdays, you know, the chance of actually landing on this day is different. Or it's
I'll
very
let it
rare.
slide that it's not
let it
exactly
slide. So give me like a 5 day window. So this day in Cavs history, January 8th, 2000. Do you remember what happened then?
That's the question. January 8th, 2000.
It's a random Cavs game that meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of Cavaliers history.
Yet I'm supposed to remember it because I have no life.
So what I'm going to do...
I didn't in 2000 either.
What I'm going to do for Sam is we're on Zoom, so you guys listening won't be able to see this, but I'm going to throw a picture up of this game for him. Let's see if this can jog his memory. And then if it can or can't, I will describe this.
Wait, before you
picture.
show me the picture?
Yeah.
Was it... No, it wouldn't have been. I was going to say it was before Jordan came back with the Wizards.
It has nothing to do with the Wizards.
Okay.
Good
Go ahead.
guess.
Show me the picture. I still don't know. Is that
Can you see it?
Knight?
Can you see it?
Brevin Knight and Bobby Sura?
Bingo. Yes, it is.
Okay. I still don't know. I give.
All right. January 8th, 2000. Bob Sura drained a three with a few seconds left to beat the Knicks at the Garden.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't remember that.
I mean, it's a silly random thing, but it's just kind of funny when you look back on these things. Cavs won that game by 89-86. Sura had 25 points.
Wow,
that's
a lot in a game where you only scored 89.
Yeah, it was just I think his third road game or something. The picture that I showed Sam is Brevin Knight jumping in the air and Bob Sura catching him. I vaguely remember this game. I don't know why. And this is how I remember it. Because when I saw this, I went to look it up on YouTube. And I remember Bob Sura going off. And I'm like, is this kid from Florida State the real deal?
Was he?
No.
No.
He was not.
I'm trying to remember, like, what was their record that year? Because that was after Kemp. Kemp was gone.
I will tell you right now, and it's funny because Sean Kemp played with some of those guys.
Yeah, of course he did. I knew he was gone then, 2000.
Because he was traded in the, September of 97.
Wow.
I
didn't know it was that long before then.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when I had Sean Kemp on my podcast last year, great guy, by the way. He was a fantastic wealth of knowledge and raved about his time in Cleveland, loved it. He talked a lot about those era of Cavs because the Cavs went through a transitional period and the lockout really screwed them up. Sean Kemp gained a lot of weight, but also he had to change position from power forward to center because the NBA went big then.
Yeah,
and that's not a lot of things that people don't want to talk about it. Okay, so that would have been January of 2000. The Cavs were 32-50 that year. They finished 6th in the NBA. And
who was a coach? Randy Whitman?
That year, it was. I think it was his rookie year. So Sean Kemp was on that team, by the way.
He was?
It was his last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. before we get into the rumors, one more fun little thing. This would have been January 5th. So this is the last week. In 2015, something big happened that day. It had nothing to do. You should get this. Had nothing to do that happened on the court. So there was no outcome. There's the dead giveaway clue right there. Cavs did not. I don't know if they played in a game or not. I could look it up. But this
David Blatt was fired.
No.
Oh. Let's see.
So it has nothing to do with the game. So what? It's not a firing either.
No. It doesn't have to do with the game. 2015.
January 5th, 2015.
Let's see. Well, I was still employed at Fox Sports Ohio.
I was still employed by ABC down in Tampa.
Okay. I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It was announced the Cavs were getting the All-Star game in 2022.
No, that announcement didn't come till like 2018,
2019 probably.
Yeah.
I think they do it like 3 years. But anyway, go ahead.
I think LeBron was already gone before they made that announcement.
Yeah.
Sam, I'll give you one clue. It was a trade.
It was a trade.
Oh, man. If you guys listening could only see Sam's eyes. They got so big. Like he thinks he knows
Trade in January of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the year that went to the finals and lost to the Warriors after Kyrie and Love got hurt.
And they would have won the championship if Kyrie and Love didn't get hurt. I would die on that. I would die on that hill.
They sure would have.
Damn Warriors. They got lucky.
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you because I don't want to keep boring our listeners.
They've already Googled it.
Yeah, they probably have, unless they're driving, and hopefully you're not texting while driving.
Yeah, don't be like me.
we need to do a separate pod on how we're bad luck when we talk on the phone.
Oh gosh,
Sam has witnessed 2 car accidents while I've been on the phone with them before.
We've talked on the phone 12 times and twice I've seen a car accident.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
3-way deal: Cavs, Thunder, Knicks. Cavs got JR and Amon.
Oh, I should have known that.
I'm disappointed in you.
Who did the Cavs trade in that deal?
Dion Waiters and multiple picks.
That's right. Yeah.
Would you like me to read you the entire trade?
Sure.
The reason why I find this intriguing is because of the picks that they traded away.
Who they later became.
Yeah, I always like finding that because like you look, the future second round pick or whatever. And usually the second round picks don't amount to anything.
Right.
But for this one, I went back and looked at the trades because it was a 3-way deal involving New York and Oklahoma City. And this was the deal. New York sent J.R. Smith to the Cavs. Cavs traded Lou Abundzen, Alex Kirk, and a 2019 second round pick that turned into Carson Edwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
A cup of coffee with the Celtics.
Yeah, he was later selected to the New York Knicks. Cavs traded Dion Waiters to the Thunder. Thunder traded a 2016 first round pick that was later selected to the Cavs, which was a European guy that I've nenever heard of before. Actually, no, is he still playing in the league right now? Oh, he's in the league.
What's his name?
He's playing for the Sixers. Man, I'm embarrassed. I don't know this guy.
Korkmaz?
Say that again?
Furkan Korkmaz or something?
Yeah, him.
Yeah. He's decent player.
Wow, I had no idea who he was.
I mean, he was last year. I don't think he's doing anything.
And the Thunder traded Lance Thomas to the Knicks.
I always liked Lance Thomas, but not much of an NBA player.
Yeah, that guy hasn't played in the league since 2020. So there's that trade. Yeah.
Wow.
But what's funny is here's the other fun fact about this. That was one of three-team trades that Iman Shumpert would be a part of in his career. 2 of them happened later, 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, he got traded to the Rockets and the Kings and all that kind of stuff. You know, what our listeners really need to know about all this is that when you and I go to lunch or talk on the phone or just are off the air or like at the Cavs game or media day, these are the conversations we have.
I know.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is John Sabol's life right here. You just heard it there in the last 3 or 4 minutes.
But
And
Sam,
it's
you
fun.
love it.
I was going to say it's fun to get roped into. I love it. I wish I was more like that.
I know. I'm not going to act like I memorized that. I totally read that off of basketballreference.com.
No, but yeah.
But it's fun.
You read it with glee.
With glee.
Assure
yeah,
everyone.
you saw the twinkle in my eyes. All right, let's get back on track. Latest rumblings and grumblings and rumors and everything. We're a little less than a month away from the trade deadline. Before we go, let's run down some names. What are you hearing? I would assume any trade that the Cavs make is going to involve Karis LeVert and probably a pick or two. Is that fair to say yet, or is that still early?
Well, yeah, it's still early. And Kobe Altman, you never know what. Nobody saw the Donovan Mitchell trade coming.
No.
Nobody saw Lauri Markkanen, being set out. So it's hard to tell. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, okay, LeVert's contract makes him the guy who would be the most logical fit. I know that the Cavs don't necessarily want to move him right now. They want to give him the rest of the season.
Like the whole season or just to the...
Yeah, I think they'd like to give him the rest of the season. I think that they would like to give him, they haven't given up on him, and there's really no reason to, except for the fact that can we go out and find somebody who's going to be a better fit for us right now? If they feel like they can do that, then yes, he's the logical guy to trade. You don't have any first rounders to trade, really. You don't want to trade first rounders for a guy who's not going to be, if you get him, is not going to be a star. We're talking about, we've heard about Tim Hardaway Jr. That essentially is up to the Cavs.
Yeah, that's the hot name right now. Is Tim Hardaway
Jr.
If
the Cavs want to make that trade, they want him. The Mavericks will do a deal with him. So it's really the Cavs have to decide: do we want him? I don't
want him.
I don't think that they're real big. They think LeVert is the better overall player.
He is. He is.
So why make that trade? Other than the fact there's only one reason that you would even think of Tim Hardaway Jr., and that's because he's shooting the same percentage as LeVert from 3-point range, but he takes about twice as many a game. So you're thinking, okay, this is a guy who's going to spread the court for us a little bit more. I don't think that deal will happen. Alec Burks is another name to watch.
Real quick, on the Hardaway front, I've seen too many Michigan guards playing in the NBA right now because both of them are Michigan guards. I don't need another one. That's the Ohio State fan in me. Secondly, LeVert and Hardaway are virtually the same exact player, in my opinion. They weigh the same.
LeVert's younger.
LeVert is younger by 2 years.
Yeah.
They're the same height. I think Hardaway's an inch shorter. That's exactly what we need. Another short guard. And Hardaway may be averaging 14 a game and LeVert at 12.5. But he's a streaky shooter and he's going to attempt a bunch of shots. If that's the only guy you're going to get, why even make that trade? Stick with LeVert. That's my opinion.
That's why I don't think they'll make it. I think it was just something where they, threw his name or maybe called Dallas or Dallas called them or something and said, what do you think about this? And maybe they were intrigued for a little bit and maybe it's just gotten legs. I don't know, but I would be surprised if they traded for Tim Hardaway Jr. I think they're more likely. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other reason why that makes absolutely no sense to trade for him is his contract.
Yes.
He's locked in until 24-25, making almost the same amount of money Karis LeVert is making right now. Karis is at 18.7. Hardaway's at 19.6 this year, 17.8 next year, and then his last year, 24-25 at 16.1. That makes absolutely no sense to get Hardaway unless Dallas or a third team gets involved and somehow gives Cleveland another piece, or a first round pick. Other than that, it's not happening.
Right. Yeah. I personally like, as far as a player, Karis LeVert more. And I think the Cavs do too. So if that's the case, then you just hang on to LeVert and maybe see if something else develops or, what have you. Now, obviously, we've heard their interest in Bogdanovich, the Pistons, who's having a fantastic year. The Pistons aren't real set on trading him first of all, because every rebuilding team needs a good veteran, and that's what he offers them. He's been positive attitude, productive on the court, and has been a nice find for the Pistons. They're in no hurry to give him up. They just signed him to an extension at the beginning of the year. So Bogdanovich would cost you too much, I believe.
And I don't think that's a smart move either, Sam, because you're looking at a guy who's 33, who's making more than LeVert.
Right.
Who's going to be
giving up more than LeVert. And
and he's making $20 million next year and 19 in 24, 25. Another guy who would be way better than Hardaway, but numbers game and age game doesn't work. So I would cross him off the list too, but go on.
Yeah. So let's say, you look at those guys, you hear those names, Kobe Altman does his due diligence. I mean, clearly he's fearless when it comes to making deals, but I don't think that the Cavs, those two moves are going to be would be too costly. Hardaway, because you're really probably not getting a better player, and his age and the contract and all that. And then Bogdanovich, you just have to give up too much for a guy who, like you said, is making too much money and is 32, 33 years old. So
33. He'll be 34 in April.
Yeah. See, no, I wouldn't want to do that. And I'm sure he's got a couple good years left. That said, it's just too big of a commitment for a guy who's not an all-star. So what you want to do is you look at the likes of Alec Burks, who's having a really nice year with the Pistons. Could you give up Dylan Windler or, some kind of money to make it match, that you're not really surrendering a lot, and some second-round picks for an older guy, not an older guy, but a guy who's been around, kind of, he had a stint in Cleveland. He's been with multiple teams. So, could you do that for one player that you don't use very often and a couple of second-round picks? Then maybe you're talking about something. But again, does Alec Burks move the needle?
No.
We don't know. You don't think – I will caution fans to just say – or to just not say, well, that guy does nothing. He's not going to do anything for us, because I think the feedback I got when they traded for Ricky Rubio was the same. It was, well, why do we need Ricky Rubio? What do we care about him? So you never know how a guy's going to fit. So I would caution not to get too reactive to, oh, well, there's nothing exciting about this guy. Well, they're not probably going to get anybody exciting if they do make a trade. So
true.
Alec Burks is a name we've heard. Doug McDermott is a name I've heard. McDermott would cost a little bit more in terms of salary. They were talking to the Clippers over the summer about Luke Kennard. I think that could be revisited. I don't know that the Clippers right now are going to want to give away Kennard, because he's their one really outside shooter. He's a good fit with alongside Paul George and Kawhi Leonard when they stay healthy. But those are the kind of players that I think they're more likely to get. The guys who are coming off the bench in losing situations, which really would be a Burks and a McDermott, and could offer your team, that are veterans, that could offer your team some know-how and some outside shooting. And Burks is really more of a mid-range guy, but this year he's really shooting the ball well from on three-pointers.
So let me react to the thank you for the insight, by the way, Sam. Let me react to Alec Burks. He did have a little cup of coffee with the Cavs back in 2018, 2019. And only played he played 34 games that year. So I guess it was maybe 2 cups of coffee or one big, large one. He's bounced around the league. You're right. He's having a career year with the Pistons. And he's getting a lot of minutes, or more minutes than he was getting before when he was, bounced around earlier.
Yeah.
But his minutes total compared in the other years that he's played with the Knicks when he was starting more, he hasn't started a game this year. It is down relatively, but for a guy who's, 31 on a bad team, he's getting more minutes than you think he would. He's averaging 14 a game. What's intriguing to me about him is that if the Cavs do trade for him, they wouldn't need to give much, because he has a club option into this offseason. So the Cavs could either, if let's say they trade for him, or I think it might be next year's their club option. that they're not, it's a 2023, 2024 club option. They're not tied to him a long time. They would give him basically a year and a half, and he's only making $10 million a year. So, it's not a sexy pick or a trade, but you're not going to get a sexy trade with the situation they're in with no major draft or draft assets or players.
Yeah, and really you don't need one. You need
and you
this
don't
core
need
to
one.
stay healthy and to develop and continue on this path. What you're looking for, not to cut you off, John, but what you're looking for here is a piece, right?
Yeah.
You just want a piece who theoretically is a guy who's going to hit that corner three on a consistent basis.
And that guy, I think, could be Doug McDermott. You mentioned him.
I like McDermott's fit. I think he'd be a good fit. I don't know what you'd have to give up to get him, though.
He's already 31, man. It feels like he was just in the league coming out of Creighton. Yeah. Okay, looking at his contract, Sam, I got it up here. He's locked in for another year after this. He's unrestricted free agent after next season, making 13.7 each year. Yeah. So again, very similar to Alec Burks. It's manageable. When you compare the, Karis LeVert contract, it's less money. Here's the two questions I have. And I don't know if you could really answer this, but you don't really see very often in the NBA teams trading within the division. The Pistons are in the division. And I know divisional play in the NBA is not really a big deal like it is in like the NFL or Major League Baseball, but you don't see it much. And with the Pistons basically tanking for Victor Wembanyama, I don't know if they'd be prone to want to do anything, or maybe they would. The second part of that question is Doug McDermott's on San Antonio. They covet draft picks with Greg Popovich's system. How much of hardball would they be on trying to maybe get more picks? The Cavs aren't going to give him a first-round pick for him. They're going to probably give him a second-round pick if you had to speculate. I don't know how San Antonio's a little interesting when it comes to trading. They're not very an active team that trades a lot. And when they do, they very rarely make a trade that you have your head scratching a little bit.
Yeah. I first of all, I think they'd be good with second-rounders if you gave them a few, because they love second-rounders. They love drafting European players with second-rounders. So I don't think and they obviously know they would be nuts if they were asking a first rounder really of any sort in a Doug McDermott deal. I will say this. They're going to trade McDermott, whether it's, and you're right, the Spurs don't really make many in-season deals. They're historically are a team that don't. The Warriors are another team that don't make in-season deals, and they're going to make a trade. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got in there and got McDermott, because and he would be a great fit there, So I think if you're the Cavs, you wouldn't have to surrender that much. You just have to give an extra second rounder or something, because other teams are going to be calling about McDermott. Other teams that are playoff contenders that want some outside shooting that are in similar situations to the Cavs are going to be calling about him, because they don't really have a real use for him there. He's not a guy that's going to develop. He's not, with your young core, and he's not a guy who's an all-star, or he's not having as good of a season as like Bogdanovich, where you really need to keep him. So I really think they're going to trade him, because people are going to be calling him about him. But I think the Cavs are interested. It's just, can we give you as little as possible and still get this guy? That's kind of the deal that they would be looking for.
Think about this. If you get Doug McDermott as it sits right now, he would have the highest 3-point percentage on the Cavs.
Yeah, no, I mean, he would probably slide into that starting small forward role. He would have every opportunity to, because that would be the one thing that's missing, he's
a guy who's played in so many career games, 563, Sam, and he's only started in 94 of them. Is that a lot to ask for? To ask, hey, you know what? We're going to want you to start. We're playing a hypothetical game here, folks, so bear with us. But hey, you know what I mean? Like, is that a lot?
All centered on Doug McDermott.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to factor in if Doug McDermott or a player like him who hasn't started a ton could get into a new situation where it's like, okay, this guy's kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
And we need the trick that he provides in our starting lineup. And that's a guy who stands over there and hits the corner three. Because right now in this offense, it's always open. So
It's open.
Yeah, sure. Or you start if you don't trade Okoro or Levert, and I don't think they ever have given any thought at all to trading Okoro, but you could start one of those guys. Let's say Levert goes back to San Antonio or whatever, but you could start Okoro, play him 5 minutes, and then bring McDermott in.
Sure.
If that's what makes him more comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are the kind of guys that I prefer that they get. I mean, frankly, if I'm the Cavs, that would, of the guys who's available that I could get for presumably not a whole lot, Doug McDermott would be the guy. Because, like you said, he'd immediately have the highest three-point percentage on the team. He immediately fills a need. He doesn't cost you much, and his contract's not out of control. I just think, to me, that's the guy that could come in and, my gosh, fit him next to Mitchell and Garland and Mobley and Allen. I think he'd be a really nice piece.
You mentioned Luke Kennard. He doesn't move the needle for me at all. And
yeah, I don't like him. I don't like him as much.
Man, for a guy who's averaging 8.5 points a game, man, he's making $14 million this year. 14.5. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't. I would probably trade for Tim Hardaway Jr. before Kennard. I really would.
Yeah, I would too. I would agree with you on that one. So I guess in the guys we talked about in the, quick 10 minutes that we've discussed here before we wrap this up, we talked Luke Kennard, Alec Burks, Doug McDermott, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Was there fifth? Who am I missing? Did we talk about another one, or is that it?
Tim Hardaway Jr., Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh, Bojan, but that was a fifth one.
Yeah.
To me, and
Bogdanovic with the Hawks, I've heard is available too.
Well, okay. Well, you just brought up another point. Atlanta's in a weird spot because they are just floating around. Well, let me bounce back here real quick. Let me two thoughts. One, I like Alec Burks, and I like Doug McDermott. I think I like McDermott a little bit more, even though Burks having a phenomenal season. I think either one of those guys would do well for the Cavaliers if they would ever make a trade. Atlanta Hawks right now are in the play-in game. They're the 9th seed right now in the NBA. They're not playing well. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, you would expect those two would have been the ones that could have been able to help this team, missing piece to get over that next step. And it just hasn't. I should say this. Those two guys are playing well, but they're not getting enough support from everyone else. And that could be a team that it's not going to blow it up, but they're probably going to be a seller if they can't figure it out in the next month.
Well, what's so weird is they went out and got DeJounte Murray, who's a fantastic player, and they haven't improved.
No.
They didn't give up much to get him either, and they have not improved despite getting this guy, him playing well, Trae Young playing well still. They're really trying to trade John Collins. They've been trying to trade him.
Yeah, and he's regressed big time.
I don't think he likes it there. I think he knows they're trying to trade him. I think if he went to a different situation, then he would be a good player. Or he's a good player now, but he'd be a better fit somewhere else. I've heard talk of, which I think would be great for the Hawks, of Collins for Kyle Kuzma, which I think that'd be a nice fit on the Hawks there. They'd be fun, even more fun to watch. But and maybe if Collins went to a situation like Washington, where he's like the fourth option there, he would really shine. So they definitely have to do something. Bogdanovic was a nice player for them when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. Got injured to start this year, and they're looking to move him. He's somebody that could draw the Cavs' interest, and may not cost a whole lot. I don't know what his contract's like, but that's totally speculation anyway.
I did see his name floated around a few times on the interwebs of potential fits, and he's got the same last name as The other
Bojan.
Bojan, yeah. And just curious if you are interested in knowing his contract status. He's got a player option at the end of next season. He's locked in this year, 18 million player option at the end of next year, also at 18 million.
It's kind of pricey for him.
Yeah, it is. And I think I don't know if that would fit either. I mean, he's out of all the guys we've named, he's probably playing the best if we're being fair in terms of number wise. But was he hurt earlier in the year?
Yes, he was hurt earlier this
Yeah.
season. He's kind of coming back slowly.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's healthy, he really gave them a lift for a while. And I think that they miss his regular consistent production. So
yeah, he's not as good of a 3-point shooter though as Burks or McDermott, but
no,
pretty good. All right. Well, we got a month to go. Those are 5 names for you Cavs fans to kind of keep your eyes and ears to as we get inch closer to the NBA trade deadline. That is February 9th coming up here. And we'll see what the Cavaliers can do. A lot of teams are going to be buyers and sellers. I think the Hawks are going to be kind of a seller, but they'll, depending what they do. And I also wouldn't be surprised, Sam, if the Cavs don't make a move.
I would say there's probably about a 70% chance that they do nothing. They made a move. They've got Donovan Mitchell.
Sure.
So I don't think Kobe Altman's out there like, we got to do something. I think he's doing his job, which is exploring the market, and we're hearing about it, but it's probably not really going to go much beyond that.
I think he'd be completely okay with Karis LeVert walking, or maybe re-signing him to a much smaller team-friendly deal if they would even want anything.
Right. A lot of things can happen with LeVert still.
And you got Kevin Love as an expiring contract. There's really no trade value there. His name hasn't been around much at all, if at all, right?
Right. No.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah, they may not make a move, but if they don't re-sign Love, and if they do re-sign Love, I think the only 3 options for Kevin Love, if you want my opinion, Sam, would be this: 1, retire; 2, sign a deal with the team on the West Coast closer to home; or 3, take a vet minimum-ish deal with the Cavs next year, 1-year deal.
Yeah, I think those are his options. I think that I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see him come back on a small deal, vet minimum, maybe a little more. I really wouldn't be surprised at all to see him sign a vet minimum with LeBron, with the Lakers. He's he went to college at UCLA. He's a Hollywood kind of guy. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him do that.
That's a good point. Something to chew on as we get into the offseason. But let's get through this season first and this trade deadline. I'll say this, Sam, before we get off here. If the Cavs don't do anything and they let Karis LeVert walk, and let's say Kevin Love walks or resigns on a vet minimum, Kobe Altman's going to have some money to spend.
Yeah, and that's, look what he's built something now that free agents would want to come to. So that's the nice part of that about having the money is, are you going to get the Kevin Durant's or not that you'd want Durant now, but I'm just saying, are you going to get those big number 1 class A superstar free agents? Probably not. And you probably don't want them because sometimes they come with so much disruption
and baggage.
But you could go pay somebody to come here and be a really good fit next to, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, who's still developing, Jared Allen. There'd be a lot of reasons for a good player to come to Cleveland now.
Yeah, one guy we didn't talk about that I thought would be a good fit that would be really good. Money nearly matches up is Harrison Barnes. But
he's a sleeper in there. He'd be nice. The thing is, he's playing so well. Well, he's not playing super well, but he's been a real good fit for Mike Brown and the Kings, who are having a nice year.
They are. They're 4th seed right now in the West. You wouldn't think they're going to mess that up after not being in the playoffs for almost over 20 years. I think that's the longest streak in professional sports, I believe.
The last time they made the playoffs, there was no such thing as the iPhone.
Yep. You're right. Man.
Yeah.
Good times watching those Kings-Lakers games.
I remember watching the Kings in the playoffs, calling you on my flip phone.
What was it? Kyocera? Nokia had the bricks, so that would have been an early LG or Samsung.
Wasn't it? Weren't we using the what were those things called where you pulled out the little pin and typed BlackBerry?
Blackberry, yeah, or Palm Pilots. Remember those two?
Palm Pilots.
Man, we started the show talking
we need
about.
we need to let our listeners go to bed.
Yeah, we started the show talking about Beckett's and basketball cards. We're ending it with flip phones and Palm Pilots. That's our time to go.
It's the best show.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, rate us, give us a good, nice review. It helps the pod out tremendously. If you haven't already, follow the pod on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. You can follow yours truly at John_Sabol. Sam, throw out your little handle if you don't mind.
Just at Amico Hoops on Twitter, or follow us on the Hoopswire account, please. And that's just at Wire Hoops. We couldn't get Hoopswire, but we got at Wire Hoops. So follow us there. And if you really want to have some fun and really go the extra mile, follow NFL Trade Rumors on Twitter. They are the co-owner of Hoopswire. So and that website is just phenomenal. Anything you want to know about the NFL is on that site. So I'm proud to be affiliated.
Very cool. And of course, always read Hoopswire. That's where you're going to get your latest and greatest NBA news. Sam writes out his best, your dribbles every night after Cavs game, but you also release the top free agents that are going on right now for guys that can be signed for vet minimums. And then the offseason is always fun too, when you can go into the current bigger list of free agents. And then the trade deadline is the biggest time of year for the website. So keep it locked to all those platforms. And we'll be back next week, better than ever, with more Cavs on the Break and NBA podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. We are out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.